Look at this. I mean, we've got a 5.2% increase in wheat prices in the last 2 days. Does it mean that further upward pressure is likely to keep on being piled on on agricultural commodities?
Well, one could say so, Richard. Yeah, I think definitely. We've already seen global food costs at a record earlier this year, and the chances are they're going to keep on going higher. What we need is a series of good bumper crops globally to relieve tight supplies, and that's just not in prospect at the moment. And we're seeing increased food protectionism too. This move from India, as you say, over the weekend, and just follows a few weeks after Indonesia banned exports of palm oil. It's the world's biggest producer, and that's sent up prices too. In general terms, the world is extremely prone to erratic weather these days. Over the last 2 years or so, this has become more extreme. We have U.S. production of hard red winter wheat, which is the most widely grown wheat in the U.S., falling to the smallest crop since 1963. We have dry weather problems in Europe. And, of course, above all, we have the war in Ukraine, and that's choked off exports from the European breadbasket. So it's very, very hard to see where any relief is coming from for global food inflation, Richard.
Jim, talk to us about the impact this is having on the wider economy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's feeding through into the inflation narrative. Obviously, energy costs have been very high, and that's also supporting agricultural prices. Food is getting more expensive, and you hear more and more sort of anecdotal stories about people finding flour hard to find, especially in the North African and Middle Eastern countries, which depend hugely on imports of wheat for their supplies. So, it's going to feed through to inflation. It makes the whole interest rate issue much more difficult to deal with for central banks, because they have to, as we've said before, have to see how they can control inflation without producing a recession.
James, does this mean that we're even more subject to weather conditions because of what's happening out there at the moment? And does that mean that there's no way of knowing when we're going to see any respite from high prices?
Yeah, I can only agree with that, Richard. I mean, you have got global warming, you've got climate change, you've got more volatile weather, more erratic weather globally, and has been causing havoc. It was an immense drought last year in Canada, which slashed the wheat crop by about 50-60%. That could rebound this year, but you've had record temperatures, heat wave in India, which is one of the reasons that production has fallen, one of the reasons why they've had to restrict exports. So the world is getting more volatile in terms of weather, and that's feeding through into crop prices and food inflation.